Hey guys, Tom here, Charlie in the background. Just before we get into this video, I'm going to leave a sneak peek to a podcast that I did with Jack Duffley, who's a YouTuber from Chicago and also a real estate broker. The full version of that podcast should be out within the next 24 hours after this video is uploaded. So as soon as it's out, I'll share it on my community page, but feel free to go check out Jack's channel as well. But for now, let's get straight into the video. Hey guys, Tom here from the Investing with Tom YouTube channel. Welcome back to the channel. If you enjoyed today's video, hit like, hit subscribe, and that way you can see future videos as well. Now, before we get into this video, I'm going to give you two data points. Now, the first one is the median household income in New Zealand last year. That came in at around $102,000. And then we have the net savings rate average in New Zealand as well, which came in at about 8%. So, those two numbers, when you combine them over a long period of time, are not going to get you to financial freedom. If you, on average, in a household earn $102,000 a year between you and your partner or whoever it is, and you're only putting away 8% of that, that comes out to over an entire sort of professional lifetime from, let's say, 20 years old to 65 years old, and it may even be shorter than that if you're going to university and that sort of thing first. That allows you to save right around $360,000 over your working lifetime. Now, if you were to put that $360,000 into some sort of fixed interest investment, some very safe investment vehicle where you get a guaranteed return, something that you might set up through your retirement, that is going to come out at a very small amount of money, only something like $6,000 or $7,000 a year. Certainly not enough to live on. So there's something that we need to do in the middle here, which is going to propel that $360,000 that we save over our working lifetimes up much, much higher, so that we have fundamentally enough money to live on when we get to retirement. And that thing is called investing. Now, it's something we talk about all the time on the channel here. And that's the fundamental reason why. Saving will simply not get you towards financial freedom. It's a very important component for putting money into some sort of investment vehicle where you can grow that money over time. But just to show you some examples, if you were to save that same amount year in, year out through your working lifetime, again, that around $8,000 a year, and you instead put that into the stock market, some sort of index fund, and earned, what the historic average has been, something like 7 or 8% per year compounded, that instead of you having $360,000 by the time you turn 65, you're going to have roughly 10 times that. It comes out at about $3.5 million. Now, if you were to put that into some sort of fixed interest investment, now you're looking at something closer to about $70,000 a year. Now, historically, although New Zealanders haven't been spectacular savers of cash, they have been reasonable investors into property. New Zealanders have this absolute love affair with the property market, and we have a very, very high percentage of our net worths, on average, invested in property. And luckily for New Zealanders, it's worked really, really well. So I'll put up some price charts here, or some indices of housing prices in New Zealand, and you'll see that about over the last decade, there's been roughly a double in house prices, which, using the rule of 72 divided by 10, comes out at roughly about a 7% per year return. And, that combined with the fact that most people are generally borrowing money to invest in real estate, and they're borrowing it at much less than a 7% interest rate, it means that they're able to leverage their initial equity in that property and grow their net worth actually much faster than about 7% per year in that investment. And that has been basically the formula for success for many wealthy New Zealanders. As they've gone out, they've invested in property, many of them have refinanced their initial investments and gone out and bought a second home or a third home, or second or third rental property, I should say, something like that. And it's been a really powerful vehicle for compounding their net worth over time. And if you get anything out of today's video, I really want it to be twofold, ideally. So firstly, I want to get across the point that saving money is not the ticket to financial freedom. You have to be an investor in one way or another. For me, that tends to be predominantly stock market focused. For others, it will be predominantly real estate focused. For many, it will be a combination of both, and that's a point that I hope to get to over the next few years as well, is having a little bit of diversification in my asset classes, is being able to take advantage of things like leverage and real estate investments, but still also get into buying into individual companies like I love to do in the stock market. So that's the first thing that I really want to get across, is that investing money is the key to financial freedom over time. And the second thing is consistency. So one of the real advantages of investing in something like property is that you have this regular mortgage payment. And although that might not sound like an advantage right off the bat, it has a couple of pros. So if you buy into an asset that is going up over time and going up at a rate higher than what you pay in terms of interest to borrow money on that particular investment, like property has done in New Zealand, it makes a lot of sense to borrow a lot of money. That's just the way that the maths works out. And it's sort of like a forced savings account in many ways. So you have your mortgage payment turn up every fortnight. You pay down some principal in that mortgage. Obviously, you're paying some interest as well. And that means that you're consistently putting money towards building equity in that particular property. And that is really what the focus should be for those looking to get ahead, looking to achieve financial freedom, is basically to identify some sort of engine for investment that you contribute to regularly. And in terms of your own compounding, there are really a few key variables that will determine where you end up in terms of a final number heading into retirement. The first one is how much you save. I know we've talked about saving not being the key in this video, but when you put some numbers into something like a compounding calculator, the amount of money that you save is fairly important. Both the initial amount that you save and the money you continue to contribute over time. That said, the early money is going to be often a huge driver for what that end number ends up at, simply because that early money that you save in your 20s and so on has longer to grow than money that you might save in your 40s, for example. So the first one is how much money you can save. The second one is your runway. How long a time horizon have you got for investment? We just mentioned that money saved in your 20s can have much more time to grow than money saved in your 40s. So the earlier you start, the better off you're likely to be, assuming that you don't make, terrible investments in those early years and just kind of blow up your account or something. Generally speaking, the earlier you can get started, the better. And the third thing is what sort of rate of return you can make. And that's some of the stuff that we try to talk about all the time, is how do we actually achieve good returns without taking unnecessary risks. For me, that's a value investing approach in the stock market. It'll be real estate at some point as well. But that's kind of the philosophy that I like to take. And the rate of return can actually have a very big influence on your returns over time. So if you're not someone that's really interested in being an investor in individual companies or something like that, index funds can potentially be a great option. Don't take that as financial advice, but that historically has worked out very, very well. And for others, that'll be picking individual companies. For others, that'll be real estate. And we've just seen that real estate has worked out really well at about 6 or 7% a year for New Zealanders, plus probably in reality a little bit more than that, because they're leveraging their money through taking on debt to make those initial investments as well. So that's all from me today. I do hope you enjoyed the video. If you can take anything out of this video, the keys really are saving money. Saving money is definitely important, but it is not the key to getting ahead over a long period of time. Investing money is the key, and being a regular contributor and doing that over a long period of time are definitely going to help you out as well. So if you did enjoy the video, please hit like, hit subscribe, and I will see you in the next one. Cheers.
5 to 20 stocks. I'm not sure how many stocks you invest in, Tom, but it sounds like your watch list and then your portfolio is probably a much fewer number of stocks compared to like a broad index investor. Is that right?
Yep, definitely. So again, it kind of comes back to thinking about things like, how thinking about it like a private business. So, if you're a businessman in your local town and you owned several car dealerships or McDonald's franchises or whatever, you probably wouldn't own 200 businesses. So it's about trying to understand a small handful of businesses really, really well. And that's kind of the angle that I approach it from, and a lot of value investors approach it from. So I've probably got the numbers slightly out here, but if you were to look at someone like Warren Buffett's portfolio, you'd probably see something like ballpark 50% of his public stock portfolio in like 5 or 6 companies. He owns a lot more companies than that, but they're much smaller positions. And yeah, I'm less than 10 stocks in my main kind of value investing style portfolio. I do own a little bit of ETF stuff as well, which I bought kind of when I was first getting started and haven't added to for